Have you ever looked around at your life and realized, wait a minute, nobody's actually stopping me anymore? Like nobody. And maybe the person I've been waiting on all this time was actually me. Girl, I'm on a roll today. I'm on a roll today. Welcome to the season finale of Simply Lily. And baby, we made it. Season 4, no permission slips. This has been an amazing season. I think by far this is probably one of my best seasons. It was just such honesty and learning and growth, and I want to thank you all for that. And if you've been riding with me this season, you already know we have talked about some things. We've looked in the mirror, we've talked about relationships, we talked about getting older, we talked about, let me see what else, owning our own choices. We talked about our bodies, our confidence, our mistakes, our healing, traveling alone, starting over, letting go, and figuring out what the heck we actually want now. Because that's actually where we're at in our life. We're basically at the point where, what is it that I really want? What is it that I want to do? Because apparently, becoming a grown woman doesn't automatically mean that you have all the answers. I mean, who knew? I thought by this age, somebody was to hand me a binder, like congratulations, you have reached this stage of womanhood. And listen, here are the instructions. And let me start out with chapter 1. What to do when your body starts to do things that you didn't authorize it to do. And chapter 2 is how to start explaining yourself to people who weren't listening anyways. And chapter 3, let me move on to some better stuff. How to say no without writing a 3 paragraph explanation afterwards. Chapter 4, why you walked into this room. Because I know I came in here for something, but there is no binder and there is no instruction manual. Surprise. And maybe that's the beauty of where we are. We get to figure some of it out for ourselves. So this episode isn't going to be a recap where I sit here and tell you everything that we've already talked about. That's not how I want to end this season, because we've done the talking. But the question is, now what? What happens when you actually start living like you don't need anybody's approval? I mean, what happens when you stop like actually waiting for the perfect time? And what happens when you stop explaining every decision? What happens when you realize I don't need permission to become the woman I'm becoming? I mean, that's where we're going today. And I have a feeling somebody listening to me is standing right at the edge of the next chapter. Not because everything is perfect, not because she's perfect, she's completely fearless, or not because she has every detail figured out, but because she's finally tired of standing still. Can you feel me? And if that's you, come on. This finale's for us. So, boom. There comes a point when you have to ask yourself a very comfortable question. This is what I've been asking myself. What exactly am I waiting for? Come on, Lil. What this is where I'm at now. And I'm walking the dog and I'm just like, Lord, what am I actually waiting for? Am I waiting until everybody agrees with me? Or am I waiting until my children understand? Or am I waiting until my friends think it's a good idea? Or am I waiting until I lose the weight, make more money, get in a relationship, or get out of one, retire? For some of us, turn 50, turn 60, turn 70. Or what about until Monday? Let's wait until Monday because because we love a Monday. I don't know what it is about I'm starting Monday, but Monday has been carrying the weight of our dreams for years. And poor Monday, I mean, maybe it's maybe it's time we give Monday a break, even though Monday's when we start everything, allegedly. Because sometimes we're not really waiting for the right time. We're waiting to feel safe enough to change. And change doesn't always feel safe, even good change. Starting the business, taking the trip, dating again, going back to school, changing careers. Wear, wearing something you haven't worn in years, or walking into a restaurant alone, setting a boundary. And what about leaving something that no longer fits? Trying something you've never done before, or saying, this is what I want. Because those things sound simple until it's your life. Because once you choose differently, people notice. And sometimes people are very comfortable with the version of you who always said yes, the version of you who always showed up, the version who didn't complain, the version who fixed everything, the version who didn't ask for much, the version who made everybody else comfortable. Then one day she says, actually, no. Are you okay? Yeah, I'm okay. Actually, I think I'm finally getting there, because growth can look strange to people who benefit from your staying the same. And that's something I've had to understand in my own life. You can love people dearly and still make choices they don't understand. And you could be a good mother and still have dreams that belong to you. You can be a good friend and still say no. And you can love your family and you still need peace. And you can have you can have a past and still create a completely different future. And you don't you don't have to call a committee meeting every time your soul tells you it's time to move. Some decisions actually don't require a vote, period. You know, one thing I actually want us to stop saying is that, you know, I'm starting over, because most of the time we're not. Starting over, and I've done it many times. And maybe that's why I keep starting over. I kept starting over because starting over sounds like we're back at zero. Honey, I'm not at zero. Do you know what it took to get here? Do you know how many lessons are sitting up inside this woman here? All 5'1" of her? How many mistakes, how many prayers, how many tears, how many times I had to figure out something when there wasn't anybody coming to figure it out for me. How many times I thought, I don't know how I'm going to get through this. And somehow I did. That's not zero. You know what that is? That's wisdom and that's experience. That's history. That's survival. That's discernment. And I've learned so much about discernment lately. Doing the spiritual hygiene and really getting into the truth and being honest has brought me such a different way to look at things, which has actually brought me amazing discernment. And you know what? That's knowing better and and hopefully doing better. Because again, we're not starting over. We're moving forward with receipts. We know some things now, and that changes everything. At this stage of life, I don't want to erase the woman I used to be. I need her, because that girl, that woman is the one who has taught me all the lessons. That woman is the one who I've always looked like in the mirror and never appreciated her until now, because that woman is the one who's always got me to where I'm at right now. Every version of me brought me something to this table. Even the version who made decisions I wouldn't make today. Even the version who stayed too long, trusted too quickly, doubted herself, settled, made mistakes, ignored ignored the red flags. I should have a colony by now with all the red flags that I've actually ignored. And listen, some of those flags weren't even red flags. Look at it like they were more like they were more like bedspreads. And we still said, maybe it's burgundy. Girl, it was red. But we're here. And wisdom isn't pretending that we've never made mistakes. Because if that's the case, it really wouldn't be wisdom. Wisdom is actually being able to look back and say, I understand now. I'm in a different place. That's why one of the most important conversations that we had this season was about owning our part, not beating ourselves up or not carrying shame, just being mature enough to say, I did that. I allowed that. I chose that. And I ignored what I knew. And then I learned. Because if there's one thing I've learned is accountability without grace becomes punishment. And we're not spending the next chapter punishing ourselves for the last one. No, ma'am. We got things to do. We have an agenda. We need to get started because now here's the part that nobody puts on the inspirational quote. Moving forward isn't always glamorous. Sometimes moving forward can be lonely. Sometimes you question yourself. And I'm gonna tell you something. Sometimes you miss things you you know weren't good for you. And sometimes you make a strong, mature woman decision at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And by 10:30 that night, you're laying in the bed thinking, now why did I do that? I mean, that's real life. Confidence doesn't mean Conf- it doesn't mean that you never question yourself. Courage doesn't mean you're never scared. And healing doesn't mean that nothing's ever going to hurt you again. Moving forward means that fear, uncertainty, loneliness, and doubt, they don't get that final vote anymore. And that's different. I can be scared and still go, and I can be uncertain and still try, and I can miss something and still know I shouldn't go back. And I can love someone and still know they aren't meant to come with me. And I can appreciate who I used to be without trying to become her again. That's maturity. Do we have slip ups sometimes? Absolutely. But that's when we go back and we're like, hold on, what am I doing? And sometimes moving forward means accepting something else that everybody isn't coming. Oh, yeah, that right there. Everybody isn't going to understand the new you. I wouldn't say the new you. Let me reword. Everybody isn't going to understand the improved you. Everybody isn't going to celebrate your boundaries. Everyone isn't going to clap for your business, the podcast, the new relationship, the single life, the trip, the new look, the dream, the confidence, the change. And you know what? That's okay because your next chapter is not a group project. And you don't need everybody to understand where you're going. Sometimes you don't completely even understand where you're going. And you just need you just know you can't stay where you've been. And that is enough to take that next step. Because I think one of the biggest lies women have been sold is that there's an age when like when you're supposed to slow down, when life starts winding down, especially for women. We hear what your age. Oh my God, Lord! If I had $1 for every time I hear that now, well, you know, at your age, you should be just taking it easy. Well, at your age, oh my God, just relax. Well, why would you start that now? And my Lord, if I had $1 for every time. But whenever somebody starts a sentence with "at your age," I already know they're probably about to irritate me. At my age, what? At my age, I can start a business. At my age, I can start a podcast. At my age, I can fall in love. At my age, I can decide I like being single. At my age, I can travel. At my age, I can learn something new. At my age, I can wear that dress. At my age, I could change my hair. By the way, I just cut my hair in a nice bob after it being so long. Loving it. And at, at my age, I can reinvent myself. And at my age, I can discover something about myself that I didn't know at 25. And also, at my age, I can change my mind anytime I want. And that's one of my favorite privileges. I change my mind. That's it. That's the announcement. That's it. No press conference, no PowerPoint presentation. There's no page 12 explanation. I changed my mind because life is still happening. We're still here. And being here means there's still something available to us, something to learn, something to experience, something to build. I mean, something to laugh about, something to discover, and something to love, and something to create. Maybe even somebody new to me been manifesting my boo. And I just been, God, when you're ready, I'll be ready. But, anyways, that's a whole different conversation. And yes, I'm talking about dating too. Listen, I didn't say we have to keep them. That's not what I'm saying. I said we can meet him, and there's a difference. But whatever your next chapter looks like, please don't make the mistake of thinking your best days automatically belong to a younger version of you. She had some beautiful days. Let her have them. But we're still making memories. And I think that's really important. And guess what? I got some real nice scripture for you because I've used this scripture so many times because this is an amazing, such a fulfilling scripture. And it is, um, it's just one of those scriptures that feels right for where we're at in this conversation. And it is Isaiah 43, verse 19. See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? I love that because it doesn't say, see, I am recreating everything exactly the way it used to be, because that's not what we're doing. We're not trying to change everything that we did. It just says a new thing. See, those those things are very different. It makes such a difference. And sometimes we're asking God to restore something when maybe he's trying to lead us towards something like we've never even experienced before. I mean, we're looking back saying, can I have that again? And God may be saying, but look what I'm doing now. See, that speaks to me because faith isn't always about knowing where you're going. That's why it's faith. Sometimes faith is recognizing that you have been released from where you were. Hmm. And trusting that there's something ahead of worth walking towards. I mean, think about it. I don't know every detail of my next chapter. I don't. Only God knows that. You probably don't even know the detail of yours. But maybe we don't need to. Maybe our responsibility isn't to know the whole road. Maybe our responsibility is basically to recognize when it's time to take that next step. So, after an entire season of the no permission slips, what is it that we really get from this? I think it comes down to this. Choosing yourself isn't selfish. And I've learned that. And I've been told, well, you know, even with my own kids, Mom, it's not about you. And maybe in that situation, it may have not been, but I can only speak when I speak sometimes because I've been there. And then I reiterate things and I says, well, I remember when I said, well, maybe it's not about you, but you know what? Sometimes it is because it's not selfish, because choosing yourself means finally including yourself in the life you've been working so hard to create. I mean, read that again in your spirit, like including yourself. Because some of us have spent years like literally building, you know, build beautiful lives where everybody had a seat in it except for us. Everybody's needs mattered. Everybody's schedule mattered. Everybody's feelings mattered. You know, don't say this because you're gonna hurt her feelings. Well, you know how she is. And it just everything else mattered for everybody else. And everybody's dreams mattered. And everybody's emergencies always became our emergencies. And somehow along this journey, we became supporting characters in our own lives. Boom. But not anymore. And choosing yourself doesn't mean abandoning the people you love, because by far, that's not what I'm trying to say at all. It means Stop abandoning yourself to love everybody else. See, there's a difference with that. And I've come to learn that. I don't need to abandon myself and, you know, throw myself to the curb and try to fix everything else and everybody else and keep giving and giving and giving and giving. And everybody keeps taking and taking. And at the end of the day, what am I doing? What am I doing? Where am I at? I can love you and I can love me. I can support you and still pursue my dream. I can be there for my family and I can still have my own life. I can be nurturing at the same time I can be ambitious. I can be soft and strong, faithful and definitely adventurous because that's my new thing, my next adventure. Classy with just enough sass to keep things to keep things interesting because I can be sassy. I've always been sassy, but it's becoming a good sassy now. And sometimes I was just that mask I used to wear because listen, we didn't come we didn't come this far to become boring now. So, as I close season 4, there's a few things that I'm personally taking with me. I'm taking the woman I've become. I'm taking all of her. I'm taking the lessons without carrying all the shame. I'm taking those memories without needing to live in them. I'm taking my faith. I'm taking my humor because Lord knows that that has gotten me through some things. I'm taking my dreams. I'm taking my voice. I'm taking my curiosity. And I'm leaving some things behind though, because sometimes that's what you got to do. The need to explain everything, the need to make everybody comfortable, the belief that I have somewhere missed my window, or the idea that my age should make my world smaller, and most importantly, I'm leaving behind the belief that somebody else has to approve the life that God gave to me to live. See, that's the shift. Remember, if you've listened to my other episodes, I've talked about the alignment. And when we find ourselves trying to get to where we want to be, there's this discernment that we discover, and we start saying, wait a minute, I need to shift this a little bit. I just need to get aligned. Maybe maybe that's what this whole season has really actually been about. Not becoming reckless, not becoming selfish, or not waking up saying, I don't care what anybody thinks. Although I'm at the point where I do say, I don't care, because if it is not going to fill my soul in a good way, and it's not going to be something that it's going to be impactful and grateful, I really don't care, because I am not entertaining things anymore that are things that it's somebody else that just doesn't know where they're at, if that made any sense. Because sometimes we should care, because I think that wisdom matters and people we trust matter, and good counseling and good counsel matters. I've shared my journey with therapy, and I kind of like I took a pause on it to see if I can take all the tools that I've learned and spoke about and put it into practice, and it's actually been a real good remedy for me. And the only problem is that you know where you're at, but not everybody else cares, or they don't believe that you could be at a certain place. But guess what? I don't care. And handing when I say there's a difference between receiving wisdom, there's always something about wisdom. And people think it's older people, and it's always that. They do have that wisdom, because there is a difference between receiving wisdom and handing somebody else the steering wheel. I'm driving and you can drive with me, and you can even help me read the map, or you can even help me, follow the blue line on the GPS. And you can tell me that you can tell me, hey, Lil, you just missed the exit. But please don't grab my steering wheel. We've already established that I don't like that. And I'm going to leave it there. Before I close this season, I have to tell you, Simply Lily itself is stepping into something new. This isn't just a podcast anymore. I want to share that the Simply Lily online store is officially open at simplylily.org. Yes, another part of my creation and another part of exploring and taking that leap of faith to do more. And now that I'm going to be entering a new part of my journey, I'm open to doing different things, and I've actually started something, and I'm so excited about what I'm building here. You see, this story is an extension of these conversations, the messages and the encouragement, the reminders we sometimes need to see in front of us. So when you visit my little store, you're just not shopping. You're actually stepping into another piece of the Simply Lily community. And I have another announcement. Simply Lily is actually returning to YouTube. Yes, I started a YouTube a while ago, and my one daughter, she's an amazing content creator, and she's very good, and she was kind of like guiding me on how to do things, and I started it, and then something happened. My one daughter became ill, and life just was put on pause because life was lifing, and things are shaping up, and things are getting better, and yeah, we're bringing the YouTube channel back to life, and this time we're going to do it differently. I got the podcast, the conversations, lifestyle, creativity. I'm going to put a little bit of my sewing, the business, and whatever else happens along the way, because you know me, I might start with the microphone and somehow end up with rearranging a room, but that's life. And that's what I want Simply Lily to become. I don't want it to become a perfectly packaged picture of a woman who has it figured out. I'm a real woman. I'm living, I'm creating, I'm still learning, and I'm starting to laugh a lot more. I've always been serious, and I have my little goofy way about me, but I'm starting to laugh more, but a genuine way of laughing and building and changing, and sharing the journey while it's actually happened. And as always, I want to thank you for coming along with me. If this episode resonated in any way, share it with a friend. Like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget to comment, because you send me DMs, send me a comment so that everybody can see it. And if if it resonates with them, they can comment. Listen, thank you for sharing season 4 with me. I did it. We did it. Yes. And on to the next part. I will see you all in season 5. Blessings to everyone. And until the next one, be blessed and take care.